we're kicking off a series today called Reflections. And the reason we called that series Reflections is because we're going to be looking at a chapter from the book of 1 John. And in 1 John chapter 3, he talks a lot about being children of God and how we should reflect him to the world around us, how people should know when they look at us who our Father is. And so we're going to kick that conversation off today and talk a little bit about what that looks like. But as I was thinking this week, as I was looking through the Bible and I was thinking about what it means to reflect our Father, I was taken back to my childhood. And I don't know what it is, but little boys, man, they love their dad. They look up to their dad. They want to be just like him. Everything that he does, they want to do. And I was no different. And I can remember at a young age, man, thinking that my dad was literally a superhero. Like nobody was as strong as him. Nobody was as smart as him. Nobody worked harder than him. He was the best. Like nobody was better than him in anything ever. You see, my dad, he was from South Louisiana, so he was a sportsman. Like he liked to be outdoors and do things outdoors. And so one of his favorite hobbies was hunting. And so, man, every time he decided that he was going to go hunting, I always wanted to go and be alongside him as he hunted. Now, as you can imagine, as an 8-year-old little boy, the last thing I really wanted to do was to go sit in a cold, wet deer stand for 3 hours and be completely quiet. That's not why I wanted to go, but why I wanted to go was because I wanted to go and be with my dad and do the things that he was doing so that I could look like him. You see, it didn't stop there. When my dad would come home from work, man, I would love to go out into the yard and throw the baseball with him. I love just to spend time with him and to get to know him on a deeper level and just to know who he was so that I could reflect him and be a lot like him. My dad was also a mechanic. He worked on heavy machinery at a factory here in Jackson. And if you've known me for very long, it didn't take you very long to realize that he did not pass that trait down to me, that I am not a mechanically inclined person, but he was really good at fixing things. And I can remember just as a little boy, just following him around to do things with him when he would fix things around the house. Because I thought it was amazing that he could take something that was broken and that he could fix it. And I wanted to do things just like him. So I spent a lot of time watching what he was doing and trying to reflect what he was doing. You see, as we look at 1 John chapter 3 today, that's the overall theme and message of where we're going to go today, is that God calls us as his children to reflect him to the world. And so we're going to talk about that and a couple of things that I saw from the passage today. We're going to talk about those things, and we're going to end our message today with one question. The question that I'm going to end with today is, who is your daddy? Who's your daddy? Do you reflect somebody else, or do you reflect your Father who's in heaven? So if you will, turn with me to 1 John chapter 3. We're going to be looking at verses 1 through 6 today. If you have a hard or digital copy, then I'd love for you to follow along with us there. If you don't stress out about it. We're going to put them up on the screen behind me so that you can follow along. But I'd love to see you reading along with me as we look at God's Word together. So the first thing I want to do, I want us to look at verse 1 together. It says this. It says, "See what great love the Father has given us, that we should be called God's children. And we are. The reason the world does not know us is that it didn't know him." And so the first thing I want us to pull out from this passage today is that if God is your Father, you're immeasurably loved. If God is your Father, you're immeasurably loved. And look, we can stop, we can close the book, and we can go home right there. Because that's the greatest truth that you're ever going to hear. No matter what I say today, the greatest thing that you can hear is that God loves you. He loved you enough to send Jesus to die on a cross for you, even when you turned and did your own thing. Even when you didn't try to reflect him, he still loved you enough and wants relationship with you enough that he sent Jesus to take your place. And see, God, he went to great lengths to have relationship with us. And see, as a father, and I'm sure I have fathers and mothers in the room here with me today that can relate to this, but as a father, man, I would go to great lengths to let my children know that I love them. And as I was thinking about that this week, I was taken back again, just a little bit further back, but to when my daughter, who is now 13, she's almost 14, but when she was 4 years old. My little girl, man, she was a girly girl. She loved pink. She loved sparkly things and princess dresses and makeup. And so, man, I was thinking about that this week, and I was thinking about there was this one instance where I was at home on a Saturday or Sunday, and I'm pretty sure, just knowing me, that I was watching a football game. And so I was sitting on the floor with my back leaned up against the couch, and I was watching my game. And the next thing I know, here comes Ashlyn bebopping up to me with all the confidence in the world. And she looks at me and she says, "Daddy, can I do your makeup?" And at first, my first thought, because I'm selfish, we all are to some degree, was, oh man, I really want to watch this game. I know that's gonna get in the way of that. But real quickly, if you're a girl dad in the room, you feel me, you know how that ended up. I did not win when it came to who wanted to do what. But I told her, and I said, "Ashlyn, yeah, you can do my makeup." And so for the next little bit, I sat on the floor and I let her do my makeup. She put eyeliner on me. She put stuff I don't know what was on me. She did my lipstick and pretty much covered my entire face in makeup. She didn't have much to work with, guys, so you got to give her a break. She didn't have much to work with. But it didn't stop there. She did my fingernails. She painted my toenails. And man, after all that, like I said, she didn't have much to work with. There wasn't much. I brought a picture just so that you could see kind of what that looks like. That is her doing my lipstick right there. She's doing a great job. I wish I could show you a full facial where you could see the artwork that was done. But you see, as her earthly father, with many flaws and many shortcomings, man, I was willing to go to the greatest lengths to show her that I loved her. You see, it's no different with God our Father. You see, God, He goes to the greatest lengths to let us know how much He loves us. That even when we turned and we went our own way, when we sinned against Him and we told Him that we know better, He sent Jesus to die on a cross in our place, and He has open arms for us to come into relationship with Him. You see, I think that changes the way that we live our life. When we realize the love, and I don't think we can ever realize the depth of that love. But when we realize the love that our Father has for us and what He sacrificed to have a relationship with us, it should give us a confidence that this world could not shatter. You see, it doesn't matter what happens in our life. If we know that we can go to our Father, we have that comfort and that confidence. See, it made me think about that story again with Ashlyn. It made me think about how she confidently came to me to ask me to do my makeup. See, she did that because she had no doubt in her mind that her Father loved her and that He wanted what was best for her. And so she confidently ran up to me and without hesitation said, "Daddy, will you do my makeup?" She didn't send me a letter. She didn't send me an email. She didn't call me on the phone or text me, even though she does that now. But she didn't do any of that. She came right up and asked me with all the boldness in the world. It's because she knew that I loved her. Look at what Hebrews 4:16 says about how we can approach our Father. It says, "Therefore, let us approach the throne of grace with boldness, so that we may receive mercy and find grace to help us in our time of need." You see, when you live in that confidence and that boldness that our Father, He loves you and He wants you to come to Him, and it changes the way you deal with things in your life. See that stressful situation that's going on at work? You bring it to your Father. See that thing that's going on in your marriage? You bring it to your Father. You confidently can come to His throne and lay it at His feet because you know that He loves you and you know that He has what's best for you. And so let me ask you today, are you piling those things on your shoulders? Are you trying to pull that weight by yourself? Are you resting in the confidence and the boldness that you have a Father who loves you and who wants what's best for you? Ask yourself that today. And look back with me to our passage in 1 John 3. We're going to look at verse 2. The next thing that I want us to pull out of our passage today is this: that as God is your Father, that you should live with hope. If God is your Father, then you should live with hope. 1 John 3:2 says this. It says, "Dear friends, we are God's children now, and what we will be has not yet been revealed. We know that when he appears, when he comes back to get us one day, we will be like him because we will see him as he is." You see, if you're in a relationship with God as your Father, man, you have a hope that you can stand on that this world can't shake. There's nothing in this world that they can offer you that can compare to the hope that you have in your Father. You see, man, there's nothing that we can find in this world that we can stand on that's as sure as the foundation of the hope that God has given us. Man, I know I probably have a lot of college football fans in the house today, and many of you know this already about me, but I'm an LSU fan. Don't hold that against me. I'm an LSU fan, and if you have been keeping up with the season at all, you know that this hasn't been the greatest season for me. It has not been fun to watch. But man, every year at the beginning of a football season, I always start it the same way. I always started thinking, man, maybe this is the year. This is the year that we're going to have a good offense and a good defense. Our quarterback's going to be really good. Our running backs are going to be good. Our receivers, our defense is going to be really good. If you've watched LSU, you know that's out the window for this year. But man, I have this hope at the beginning of the year. And see, after last year, winning the national championship, man, and having one of the greatest seasons that I think I've ever seen, I thought for sure, at least for a couple of years, I was going to be able to come back and be confident that my team was going to be good. Boy, was I wrong. Like, I was dead wrong. But then you have teams like Alabama. I'm sure some of you are Alabama fans, and I'm sure that you start out the season just like I do. You hope that you have a good offense and a good defense. You hope that you're going to contend for a national championship. See, the difference between the two teams is that LSU, as bad as I hate to say this, we really just hope that we can be in that conversation. But as Alabama fans, there's not really a hope. There's a certainty that you're going to be in that conversation every year. I mean, it really doesn't matter what happens. They could lose half of their coaches. They could lose half their players to the NFL. I mean, come on. Even a global pandemic did not slow the train down. They are still good this year, and they're in the conversation. See, I don't bring that up to talk smack about my football team, even though they do stink this year. I'll go ahead and tell you, they stink. And I definitely don't bring that up because I want to praise Alabama. I promise you that is not the case as an LSU fan. But I bring that up because as people, we hope for things. We hope for a lot of different things in our life. We hope that our spouse is going to be faithful to us. We hope that our children are going to grow up and become successful and have a good life. We hope that our job stays intact and we get to keep it. We hope that we make enough money to pay all of our bills. You see, it's not wrong to hope for those things. But where you get yourself in trouble is when you put your hope in those things. See, when you put your hope in those things, just like me with my LSU team, you're destined to be let down. Every time you're going to be let down. And let me let you in on a little truth. Even Bama fans at some point are going to be let down. I'm telling you, it's coming. If I'm honest with you, I hope for that every year, and it hasn't happened yet. But I still have hope alive. But man, when we hope in those things, we're destined to be let down. But see, if God is your Father, you have a sure hope. It's more like a done deal. Like the hope that you have in Him, you can rest on it. You can take it to the bank because He's a God of faithfulness. He's a God that keeps His promises, and He's promised that He's working in us to make us more like Him. He's working through us to bring hope that we have to the world around us. And he's working in this brokenness, and he promises that he's going to bring it all to fruition one day, and he's going to come back to get us and to live eternity with him. Come on. Like, I'm excited about that. That's a hope that we just can't have with anything else. So, man, when you live in that hope, it changes the way that you have to look, the lens that you have to look through in this world. You see, when the money goes away, yeah, that hurts. But you have a hope to cling to. When your child falls off the deep end and doesn't do what they're supposed to do, you have a hope to cling to. See, when you lose your job, you have a hope to cling to. Or let me hit real close to home with a lot of us. Whether we have a Republican or a Democratic president, you have a hope to cling to in Jesus. So ask yourself that today. What are you putting your hope in? Are you putting your hope in something in this world that's destined to let you down? Are you standing on that sure foundation that God gives you as his Father in relationship with him? Now I'm begging you today, put your hope in something that you can count on. And look back with me one more time to our passage in 1 John 3. The next thing that I want us to see from our passage is that if God is your Father, you should resemble him and not the world. If God is your Father, then you should resemble him and not the world. Look with me at 1 John 3, verse 3, and we'll go all the way to verse 6. It says this. It says, and everyone who has this hope in him purifies himself just as he is pure. Everyone who commits sin practices lawlessness, and sin is lawlessness. You know that he was revealed so that he might take away sin, and that there is no sin in him. Everyone who remains in him does not sin, and everyone who sins has not seen him or known him. See, we started out today by saying that to live as God's children, we want to reflect him. And so when we look in the mirror of our life, are we supposed to be a perfect representation of what God is? No. We're never going to be able to do that on this side of eternity. And that's not what God's expecting from us in this passage. But what God's expecting of us is that we day by day take intentional steps to grow, to be more like him every day. So I know a lot of you know that I'm an LSU fan. But probably one of those closet things that you don't know about me is I'm a big superhero fan too. Like, I love superheroes. But my favorite one is Batman. Man, Batman's my dude. He's always been my dude. I've loved him since I was a kid. I don't know why. Like, I know there are other superheroes that could wipe the map with him. Like, I realize he really doesn't even have a superpower. But he's still my favorite. And so if you followed Batman for any length of time, you know for probably about the past 30 or 40 years, about every 10 years, they come out with a new spin on the Batman character. And so in the early 2000s, they came out with a trilogy of movies they called the Dark Knight series. And the middle movie of that series was called The Dark Knight. And so that was my favorite Batman movie of all time. And it wasn't because the Batman character was great. Like, in fact, I didn't even really think Christian Bale was that great of a Batman. Like, he wasn't my favorite. And you may agree, may disagree, but he wasn't my favorite. But what made that the greatest movie for me was the way Heath Ledger did the Joker. Oh, man. Like, Batman is my favorite superhero, and the Joker is my favorite villain. Like, I love to see those two go up against each other. It's just crazy. But when I went and saw that movie, I sat in that movie and I watched Heath Ledger portray the Joker so great. And probably about the third time that I went to see the movie, I came out and I decided that, man, because he did such a good job, like, I want to be him for Halloween. Like, and I'm not going to do it little either. Like, I'm not going to go buy one of those prepackaged little suits that you can wear with a green wig. Like, I'm going to do it big. I want to look just like him whenever I get to Halloween. And so when I walked out, I decided right there, I'm going to grow my hair out. I'm going to grow my hair out as long as I can possibly get it before Halloween. And if you've seen me with longer hair, my hair's pretty wavy like the Joker in that movie. And so once I got it pretty long, it would look a lot like him. So I started growing my hair out. I went and I found the perfect things for my costume, I got the makeup and I got the little rubber scars that go on the side of my mouth, and I could paste them on to look just like the Joker in that movie. I found green hair dye. I found the costume to go along with it. And man, let me tell you something else I did. If you know that movie, you know that the Joker, in one of his famous lines in that movie, is, "Why so serious?" Yeah, pretty good, right? Y'all like that? I got in the mirror and I practiced and I practiced and I practiced it because I didn't want to just look like him. I wanted to sound like him. And so, man, I did all of those things leading up to Halloween. When Halloween day got there, I got dressed. I dyed my hair green. It had grown to about right here. Dyed my hair green. I put my makeup on, put the black around my eyes, the red on my lips, put the scars on, and I put my costume on. And man, when I looked in the mirror that night, I looked a lot like the Joker. Like, I was impressed with myself. I was like, "You have gone all out. You look good." I brought a picture with me just to show y'all because I didn't think y'all would believe me. But man, like, I did all that to look like the Joker. And everywhere I went that night, man, people told me, "Man, that's the best Joker costume I've seen all night." And that year in particular, everybody dressed up as the Joker. I mean, like, everybody. But man, I had to take intentional steps to become like the Joker. You see, my hair, it didn't grow out overnight. I had to start doing that. I had to go find a costume. I had to do all those things. You see, our relationship with God is a lot like that. See, we have to take intentional steps to grow in our relationship with God. We have to spend time with Him in prayer and to let Him speak to us and form us. We have to spend time in His living Word and let Him form us into the disciple that He wants us to be. And we have to spend time around other like-minded people, not so that we can just have a good time and have some community, but so that God can use those people to form us to be more like Him. Because believe it or not, God uses us to form each other. And so we have to take intentional steps to put ourselves in those positions so that we can grow in our relationship with God. You see, if I'd have wanted to be the Joker for Halloween, and I hadn't done any of those things, but I'd have showed up on Halloween night and I'd have walked in the party with all the confidence in the world and gone, "Hey, I'm the Joker." People would have looked at me like, "Man, you are crazy. You didn't even put anything on. What are you talking about? You don't look anything like the Joker." And see, the sad thing is that so many people do that with Jesus. They say, "I want to look like Him. I want to follow Him. I want to do the things that He did," but they don't show up to a gathering but once a month. They're not a part of spiritual community. They don't open their Bible. They don't pray. So let me ask you this, like, how are you supposed to look more like Him if you don't do the things that He told you to do? And so today, man, ask yourself that question. Are you doing some things that the world is telling you to do? Are you reflecting them? Are you starting to reflect God your Father? Are you taking intentional steps to grow to know Him more and more? Imagine this with me for just a second. Imagine if this church family, if this group of people, if we really took this seriously. Man, if we walked out these doors today and we stood confidently that our Father loves us and that we can bring anything to Him, what would that look like? I think we would be a lot less stressed people. We would be a lot more hope-filled people. I think there'd be a whole lot less depression because we're putting our faith in a Father who loves us. What about if we were a people that took that hope, that sure foundation, and we stood on it and we showed the world around us that we weren't shaken no matter what happens in our life? Yeah, things happen. We're going to be hurt. We're going to be sad. We're going to suffer in this world. But there's a difference between us and the world. We don't have to be shaken. So what would it look like if you walked outside today and you lived in that hope? And what would it look like if we all decided to take those intentional steps to be more like God, to be more like the disciple that He's called us to be? If we took those intentional steps to be more like Him, I'll tell you what would happen. The city around us, man, it would be transformed. Because when you send an army of disciples out who want to be more like Jesus, they're going to notice it. They're going to go, what in the world are those people over there in that room doing? They are different than us. And that thing happened to them, and they weren't shaken. They kept their hope. What do I have to do to get that? That's what would happen. So imagine that with me today. Could we be that kind of people? And let me end with this. Let me ask this question of you personally today. When you look in the mirror of your life, whose reflection do you see? When you look in that mirror, do you reflect the world or do you reflect your Father? So ask yourself this question today. Who is your daddy? Who's your daddy?